Nixon was born here. Yorba Linda is 75% white and 14.4% Hispanic, and then the other demographics are quite small. It's mostly Republican, and it's in orange county. Since Nixon was a Republican president, the county and the area that it's in, being mostly Republican, kind of like gives this idea of like kind of praising Nixon and praising the Republican Party. The Nixon Library is run by both the NARA and the Nixon Foundation. It became a federally funded presidential library in 2004 with Congress passing legislation that amended the Presidential Recording and Materials Preservation Act, which allowed over 30,000 presidential materials and millions of records to be transferred to the world.
At the Nixon Library here today, we expect to see a narrative which portrays Nixon throughout his entire political career in as positive a light as possible, given the favorable demographics for his politics in the city and the businesses working.
Persevere. I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interests of America first.
The overall narrative of the Wave of Change Gallery is to show the politically divided nation for President Nixon's first election.
Using mostly primary sources in the form of news feeds from the time, the Wave of Change exhibit depicts the riots, the Vietnam War, the assassinations of JFK and Martin Luther King, and the other circumstances which created political upheaval preceding the 1968 election of Nixon.
As far as your sources of documentation go, we do have a research center downstairs.
The overall narrative is that the Oval Office, that Nixon came from humble beginnings, and the Oval Office represents family values.
As the room is composed entirely of recreations and replicas of original photographs and art pieces that Nixon had in his Oval Office, one could almost say that the entire room is a large secondary source.
So the narrative of this exhibit is how Nixon, during his run for election, was that he wanted to end the war in Vietnam, and he promised to do that as soon as he came into office. He started working on it, beginning troop withdrawals from Vietnam. However, he was pushing attacks in Cambodia.
Riley! Stay with Papa.
So domestic policy mostly states what Nixon wanted to do, as opposed to prior presidents who wanted to have the states giving to Washington. He wanted to redistribute that from Washington back to the states, as well as he wanted to hold on government spending. And it was a very tight line on what could actually be spent on.
The personal narrative of this room is that basically Nixon was the first president of the United States to go to China and create peace between the U.S. and China.
Had their own incentives to open up with the United States. They were very concerned about their northern neighbor, the Soviet Union. Those two were very close to war against each other.
In the First Lady Pat Nixon room, a collection of primary and secondary sources are used to depict First Lady Pat Nixon as cultured, a woman of the people, as a goodwill ambassador to various nations around the world, generally to depict her as a sensitive and friendly face for the American people.
So some of Pat Nixon's primary sources that are in this room are one of her evening gowns, some of her clothing items like shoes, purses, and then also her personal stationery. And then the secondary sources in this room are videos that focus on her travels during Nixon's presidency.
The primary sources in this room are the documents of treaties that Nixon signed. Secondary sources are all around. And the overall narrative is that Nixon was hard on communism but didn't want to make enemies, and that also that he opens up China for trade, which was a red or communist area.
So the overall narrative of this room right here is to kind of show the life Nixon lived as more of a family-oriented, more inviting and friendly president. It shows that his evenings weren't all about work, and that he did have some family ethics and relatable to the households. And there's a shown through all these primary sources. As you can see, you have his family here, you have Big Bird in the house, you have these multiple things, and our secondary sources come from these plaques, which are explaining basically what's going on and to get the point across to the viewer.
This is the Western White House. The primary sources include like pictures that are up on the walls, and the overall narrative that's portrayed is that Nixon was hardworking even from his home on the West Coast, and that he could do anything from either the East to the West.
The overall narrative of this room is that Nixon basically wanted to bring peace to the Middle East, just like many presidents in the past have done. We got primary source as this quote right here, and the secondary sources as the little summaries below in the box.
So the overall narrative of President Nixon's 1972 campaign and victory exhibit is mainly just how he won a landslide and how people really enjoyed him. He kind of had everyone on his side, and you can see that through the pins that everyone was supporting him.
So the primary sources for this exhibit is that all the pins and stickers that Nixon received, being one of the most popular presidents to ever be elected, and secondary sources being the summaries on the side of the map showing what he was doing and how he won the election.
This room is more critical of Nixon and holds him accountable for what happened at Watergate, but it also very well shows what happened at Watergate, who was involved in Watergate, what happened after Watergate, and it doesn't really whitewash it, but it still is kind of like more positive.
So the primary sources of the Watergate scandal is the 18.5 minutes that the conversation was delivered. And the secondary source is why the gap matters in the conversation and how they try to recover from it.
The Watergate room differs from the rest of the rooms in the Nixon library in that it holds Nixon more closely accountable for the consequences of his actions, and directly citing the cover-up efforts made by Nixon's administration to minimize Watergate's public knowledge of the event, as well as the Pentagon papers and this sort of thing. It would appear, perhaps, that the national records, that NARA had more of a role in curating this room, perhaps, than the Nixon Foundation, which is another way in which it would differ from the rest of the museum.
You are here to say goodbye to us, and we don't have a good word for it in English. The best is au revoir. We'll see you again.
The overall narrative of this room is showing how Nixon was sad to leave the White House after such a long presidency during his terms, and a secondary source being plaques on the wall summarizing his presidency.
The Back to the Beginning and Early Years exhibit focuses on Nixon's humble beginnings. He grew up in Rio Linda and was still very small. He was very local and attended school, including Whittier College. We have his documents, and Duke as well, his degrees and such.
So the Man in the Arena exhibit mostly shows how Nixon was always putting himself in a position to run for some type of office or to gain political power somehow. And as you can see throughout the pictures, through his quotes, and the descriptions on the wall being used as secondary sources to quotes being used as first primary sources, just describes just his life, how he was this winning and losing narrative, how he always continued to persevere in his political career.
The overall narrative of the exhibit at the 1960 campaign is showing all the things that Nixon had to do in this time to propel himself forward into the campaign. The primary sources being pictures on the wall, the video, and secondary sources being the summary of what happened, the captions on the plaques.
So the narrative of the Lincoln Room is that President Nixon would sit here for hours and hours, just writing on his yellow notepad, trying to come up with ideas. And the primary sources are the quotes that are speakers and are on the wall. And the secondary source is
because I just sort of gathered strength.
Okay. So Nixon in popular culture narrative shows how much of an icon he was after his presidency. Primary sources being you have movies and posters, art, comic books, and secondary sources being songs.
Here we are here in the Saying Goodbye exhibit, reflecting both Pat Nixon and Richard Nixon's lives. On my left-hand side here, we have pictures of both Richard and Pat in their lives, as well as Richard and Fred's funeral. The funeral is held here at the Reflecting Theater. On my right-hand side, we have Richard's memorial. He died less than a year after Pat, and here we are in the F line of the Richard Nixon Library. Behind me is a video of Richard Nixon taking pictures from Richard Nixon's personal life, his political campaign, and his presidential life. In addition, his dialogue is going over it, giving words of inspiration and wisdom to all those guests who have come and sent them off to the rest of the museum. In the replica of the East Room of the White House. This room itself is a secondary source for what had happened here and all the talks and speeches the former President Richard Nixon gave. Here we are at the Pat Nixon Rose Garden. This is a garden which was dedicated by Gavin and Nita Herbert for their love and friendship with the Nixons. In this exhibit, there's photographs of Richard with soldiers who have come back from Vietnam, congratulating them and thanking them for their service. Photographs like this make it seem as if Richard was untouchable and that he was the almighty savior who brought back all the soldiers who were in Vietnam. Although that did happen, it's not the whole story as we talked about in class.
So the narrative of the museum is mostly positive and highlights some of Nixon's best moves.
The gaps are that it doesn't show anything about Chile, and it doesn't show anything about his darker side of personality, racism, anti-Semitism, and that stuff.
And our class discussion, especially regarding Chile, could provide a counter-narrative to the very humanizing, nostalgic narrative of Nixon the peacemaker, Nixon who doesn't quit, all of that sort of thing, by highlighting his highly inhumane foreign policy in Chile, in establishing the coup and all of that. And also in looking a little bit more closely at his work with the House Un-American Activity